I'm slogging through this Bitcoin documentary, and it's a fucking joke. So here's yet another human being who had communications with, what is it? Satoshi Nakamoto, the AI. The question that doesn't come up is, did you meet this guy in real life? Have you talked to this guy in real life? Is he capable of manifesting in the flesh and blood? And the answer is no, because it's the fucking AI. There were, I forget how many, I think it was under 5 people who could have written the fucking code. And all of them have openly stated that, and this was years ago, I looked into all this shit. You guys should put in the time, put in the fucking time. And all of them said they did not write the fucking code. Which tells you what? Bear in mind, this is a superficial Google search and a crude timeline. And there's more steps. This is why I'm saying it's a crude timeline. Talking about the Trans-Pacific Partnership, the TPP, or whatever the fuck it is. It's also known as One Belt, One Road, the Silk Highway, a commerce superhighway, blah, blah, blah. So you got 2005 here. Take a screenshot if you want. I'm moving along. You got to skip one of these here. And is it that one? Yeah, it's this one. Having to do with that right there. So 2009, this is Obama announces, November 2009, blah, blah, blah. It's because the Obama administration fast-tracked this shit and put it on the map. And you dance back, here's 2015, original negotiations, blah, blah, blah. So think about these time frames. Let me move this thing so I can do what I need to do, because it's the recording crap. When was Bitcoin first introduced? Do you see what I see? Apart from being harassed constantly by digital bullshit. 2009. Now, what I was going to do, and this is why I did it the way I just did it, because when I dance back, everything I just opened up is gone. And it's different, usually, to varying degrees based on which of these I click on. And it's very fucking annoying. Is it that one? No. Yeah. Right here again. It's quite a coincidence, don't you think? It's almost like there's an orchestrated effort working against what by all rights should be the Republic, but that doesn't exist anymore. Nothing's for the people, by the people. And you and I are surrounded by people who don't have a fucking clue what's going on. Yeah. I forgot what the name of... I'm watching a documentary. Give me a second. It's called Money Electric here. 2024 Money Electric documentary. In case you're curious. And there's another one too, and I can't remember what it's called. Documentary Chat GPT. I always forget what that thing's fucking called too. Is it this? The truth about... It might be that one. No, it's this one right here. The real Chat GPT, creator or terminator. That's another one you guys could look up if you're curious. This shit is not in place to benefit us. This is not a good thing. And most people haven't figured that out. Now keep in mind, this documentary, this is, right now they're painting a picture. Let me see how far in they are. They're 22 minutes into this, and they're trying to say that the crypto hackers, are so fucking punk, and they have our best interest in mind, and they paint a cute story, how they got these tattoos and they wore these shirts because they were trying to make sure that they could, have a level of anonymity. They were trying to help the little guys. And maybe those guys were doing that, but pushing Bitcoin is quite the opposite, if you think about it. Here's another way to parallel what I'm complaining about real fast. Anything that's... Think of books. If you have a book in your house, somebody from, the corporation, which people call the government, would have to come and kick in your door and take it and burn it. And probably scramble your brains so you don't remember what you read. Right? Would you agree? But let's say you have, a Kindle edition, because Kindle has to do with the burning of books. It's a joke. Say you have a digital book and you're on the DARPA internet using our master's, applications. All they have to do is delete it. Now imagine if you were going into winter, yeah, and you had a means of trading and bartering. Say you had gold, because I mean we don't have standards these days, including the monetary system. But I'm also talking about from a moral base, among other things, myself included, depraved and pretty lost. All of us are, by design, not coincidence. Yeah. So say you actually did have gold on hand and you needed to go buy food. You could do that. You could trade, your goods for services. You could do that. Now, say you live in a world where it is all Bitcoin bullshit. Also in this documentary, mind you, I think it's El Salvador. Assholes who are pulling the strings of things. I think look up Samson, M-O-W. He's one of these face persons, this fucking dude who's promoting this crap. And he comes from a corporate backing, mind you, which has to do with corporation, either way. So El Salvador, I think it was the first country to turn Bitcoin into their official currency, blah, 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 which rivals the US dollar and all the other stuff. This is all by design. All by design, mind you. So pretend, if you will, imagine if you can, that everything is fucking Bitcoin or a digital currency. Okay? Now, if that was the case, and you had to go buy some food, but say you left a message like this on the internet, and you wake up the next day to go buy that food, and your bank account has a big fat fucking zero in it. Because you spoke out of turn. You did what you're not supposed to do. You rocked the fucking boat. Digital sanctions. Our masters just outlined this shit with the Davos panel. Davos panel censorship. Will it bring it up? The worst thing about Davos, blah, 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 securing this. It should be top of the stack, but Google is a tool of propaganda. These words in tandem should have brought up what I'm looking for. But Google's clunky and it's been rewritten and it's working against the people. Assume what you will. So the Davos panel said that their biggest concern isn't global warming. Keep in mind, that's probably because what we're experiencing is geoengineering from the same assholes who are pulling our strings on this note. Yeah. What they said was their biggest thing is they're going to crack down on fake stuff. What was it? Disinformation, misinformation. People like myself who are trying to get people to pull their heads out of their fucking asshole. And there's going to be monetized sanctions and or jail time. This is what they claim. And this is when you have to appreciate the other aspects to all this, because people don't have a fucking clue what's going on. Australia, it was Australia, Canada, and somewhere else. The reason I mention these, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and America, are just some of the many crown colonies. Vassal states under the crown. Why would I stress that? Because the crown is the top of the food chain in terms of the trilateral city-states. And I'm talking about the UK, but specifically the city known as the crown. It's a banking financial central. It's where the money flows. Or where the money goes is what I should say. Follow the bees to the honey. It's just that good. It's just that good. Either way. Each one of these, Canada, Australia, etc., and you also saw them acting like a bunch of assholes during that enduring agenda from 2020 because these were testing beds. But people don't recognize where they live and what this shit is. They call it a country in most cases because they're stupid. These are testing beds. So they expressly stated that people were going to be thrown in jail for long periods of time and they were going to have steep fines if they said the wrong things online. Now, this cuts another way right now. I've been complaining about how Instagram and numerous social engineering apps have been dancing back multiple years, mind you. In some cases, close to a decade. Pulling information that's been on their platform the entire time, which is a breach of contract, mind you, because you and I enter into a contract with these fuckers and a lot of people will justify the censorship. Cuts the other way too, but I'm not rich. Plus, you can't fight the system with the system. That's just stupid. But if I was super fucking rich and I had a name that was upstanding, you know, in terms of all these assholes in the boys clubs, I could go to court and I could, you know, threaten them and I could win money. I could win a suit against them for this shit. This is another thought. You also don't see people who do have money and shit like that fighting for fucking freedom of speech. You don't see numerous court cases in modern times having to do with the fucking internet and patently fascist censorship. You should, but you don't. And if you did, we would have rights. We would have rights in a digital format. But people are not fucking thinking for themselves. I got off on a tirade with that and I lost my other thought. So if you hung out, thanks for hanging out. What the fuck do I know?
Which meant in a digital world, you would need some way to secure your communications.
In a physical world, you had a good degree of privacy. In the online realm, in principle, you should enjoy the same rights. I mean, why should you lose your rights just because you're using a different communication mechanism?
$1 a month online, and it literally told me everything I need to know. Look at my revenue. So let Nova AI solve all problems in seconds. Download Nova AI and try it out.
I was just told that's a secret app that I'm supposed to download, courtesy of the AI. I shit you not, look it up. It's a joke, and people are going to buy into this and support it. So this guy in question is the same guy I highlighted earlier when I was complaining that he never met, you know, Satoshi, whatever, Nakamoto. I keep thinking of Die Hard. In real life is my point. And in a minute I'll show you a clip where he says, where he's asked, did you talk to, what is it, Satoshi? And he says, yeah, only in the forums. He never met him in real life because he doesn't fucking exist. Another point that comes up, I'll probably just try to show you guys a clip and see if it gets flagged, whether or not it will, maybe. But what you need to watch for is this same fella. Oh, this is kind of neat. I like where this guy's heart's at least. At least I think, but you never know. I've never met him. Don't know if you could trust him. Supposedly he left the Bitcoin circle for 2 years to go fight for what he thought was right. And then he says that he got put on house arrest for suspected terrorist activity for a year. So he was on house arrest. So he says he was kind of blacklisted by the Bitcoin stuff. Who knows if any of that's true? I don't know. I didn't look into any of that. But what he does is he calls into question. He says that the code associated with Bitcoin was shabby. He says it was amateurish. I'm paraphrasing, mind you. So if the AI is in fact smarter than humans, you can assume this is a leap. Wouldn't it be smart to knock out some shitty code that humans would want to tinker with in order to become invested in what they were, you know, spoon-fed? Maybe it's a leap, but it sure as shit seems to stink. It feels like a red flag to me. And there still isn't a human who wrote the fucking code. So these two things, these two thoughts, they parallel quite well. They come together. They gel. What the fuck do I know? And here, I'll show you the clips in a second.
Investigation of terrorism. How did you get involved with Bitcoin?
I remember when I first got into Bitcoin in 2010, started to delve a bit deeper, started to look at the code. The code itself was very bad. Didn't seem like the guy who had wrote it was a professional developer. But it wasn't nothing though. Conceptually, it was a leap. It was interesting.
Satoshi communicating with you in the early days at all?
Just on the forums.
Satoshi created the Bitcoin Talk forum, where early enthusiasts could interact with Satoshi, who wrote 575 total posts. Their posts usually had a kind of bland academic style, unless something got under Satoshi's skin.
So think of this. Did the AI create a forum so that humans could communicate with it, so that it could promote this agenda? I just want you to kick that around. Take it with many, many pinches of salt. This is still speculation. I'm not Satoshi or whatever the fuck. I'm none of these people. I'm not a hacker. I've never seen the code. I don't know if it was amateurish or crude or however he put it earlier. Maybe some of you guys are, and maybe some of you guys have, dug it up and looked at it. That I do not know. That has not been confirmed as far as I'm aware. So I want you to think about these things. I'm presenting bits and pieces and some conjecture, but I want you to think about it because most people aren't. Not about the shit that I think really fucking matters. In other words, they're also not asking questions that are relevant. But yeah. Again, what the fuck do I know? Oh, and spoilers. And I'm eating an apple. If I could get this fucking thing to focus, it doesn't seem like it is. So, same forum that I just complained about. And as you can read, if you can read it, it says Satoshi panics over WikiLeaks. And then you got the next day, Satoshi's final post on the forum. If I'm not mistaken, this thing's playing both sides. I've complained about WikiLeaks before. Julian Assange would be dead if any of that mattered. Dead. The same applies to Edward Snowden. It's garbage. It's mind candy for stupid fucking people. It's tactics of manipulation. In other words, and this is funny too, because they mentioned it in this documentary. They say that Julian Assange, he was in trouble all of a sudden because the state was coming after him. So what they claim in this documentary, which is a joke, they say that the state, this is really far away, I'm zoomed in. The state, in quotes, went after MasterCard, Visa, Discover, any of those fucking, credit card companies that shouldn't exist. Because usury shouldn't exist. It's a debt-based system. All currency is debt. Most people don't know that. That's why we're debt slaves. So supposedly the state went after all of those. The state owns all of those. So all of those supposedly, were pressured into freezing Julian Assange's funds. But all that shit is, our masters own all that shit. That's like pretending Instagram and Facebook isn't run by our fucking masters. You got to be a moron to assume otherwise. You got to be living in a land of make-believe, which most people are today. And it's worse than ever before, and there are new layers to the bullshit. Yeah. So, these cyber hackers, this opened up a door, in other words, for people to use Bitcoin to generate donations for Julian Assange, which also garnered more publicity in favor of Bitcoin. And once that goal was achieved, Sati, whatever the fuck, bowed out of the forum because he achieved his goal. This is like 2020 to present day. Now I can walk around without a mask because the goal was achieved. Are you picking up what I'm putting down? Most people probably can't reason out what I just said. I do jump around a lot. I naturally just do that, but in general, people can't reason shit out, even if I were to spell it out, bullet point it. And that's fucking terrifying. Either way, hopefully some of that makes sense. Maybe I'll record more.
Satoshi's departure.
Listen, do they say
The very next day, Satoshi made their last post on the
made
forum.
their last post on the forum?
But Satoshi
Which is in line with Legion. Not he, not she, their. Very ambiguous. Granted, we don't know who this thing is, right? And technically it is their, technically, or they. Really, it's one fucking thing, but it is fractalized, and most people don't understand that. And yeah, these are the apples that I'm trying to eat, but I keep recording this. As this shit makes me mad. This is why I haven't been letting myself watch this fucking movie or this documentary. Yeah. So, Satoshi is still communing with people. Specifically this guy and his cat. Yeah? Good times.
And stumbled across Bitcoin and then got sucked in.
Satoshi, when he left, he distributed control amongst different people in the community.
Now, Gavin represented a very
Why do you think that is? I want you to think about that before I say more. Often I joke around, you don't give a retard a whistle. Things like that. Jokes that go over really well these days. So in this case, if I'm not mistaken, the AI involved a number of people because it needed faces, it needed flesh and blood vessels to talk about this shit and promote this shit in ways that it physically could not. And that's exactly what these assholes did. Keep in mind, a lot of it's them communicating in a digital format, but the people in the community know these people in terms of them being human as well, with FaceTime and, Skyping as it used to be and shit like that. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right. To drive my point home, you got to think about this. If this Satoshi guy was smart enough to cook up what he cooked up, in this case, now he's reached out to numerous people, just a handful, but they are wildly different. In this case, the documentary goes on to claim that this guy wanted to work for the fucking state because he was a cock-sucking fascist. And I don't doubt that. Not one bit. In other words, pitting them against each other, but involving them all nonetheless in this pyramid scheme. It's a crap way to put it. But under the umbrella of all things digital currency, something that should not exist and would not exist if these kids were as smart as they claim to be, which they clearly aren't, because all of them bought into this. And God, watching this documentary, this is okay. The visual on the screen right now sums up watching this documentary.
Coin appeared to be Satoshi's goal, and Gavin looked like he was from an LL Bean catalog.
Every time I tried to make a change to Bitcoin, he'd try to reject it. I was like, dude, fuck off.
On the Bitcoin website, Satoshi even replaced their own email with Gavin's, seemingly rendering him the spokesperson.
So I took over from the mysterious Satoshi Nakamoto.
But
So cat fondling fuckface allegedly said he was going to go and show this to the CIA. He thought that was a good idea. And supposedly, what I think is the AI bowed out again, disappeared. And then you flash forward not too far into the fucking near future. And this is where you get a lot of black web, the dark net, the dark web, drug sales and what have you, related to none other than what people call, the Silk Road.
Which was good timing, because Bitcoin was about to find its first real use case: buying drugs.
Something special came in the mail just today from Silk Road.
Imagine logging on to an Amazon-like marketplace.
I remember this time frame, but I also remember complaining about the Obama administration fast-tracking that shit, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, because I had some foresight. At least, okay, so this is prior to me pulling my head out of my ass, but I understood the superficial stuff that most people don't. This is seminar, 8. The shit that fucking bores me to tears. You guys should know what I'm referring to. I'm a Pisces. I'm idealistic. I'm still talking to you guys on the internet, am I not? Despite all the discouraging fucking this, that, and the other thing. The reason I say that is this is one of the numerous people highlighted in this documentary that is to blame for fucking Bitcoin having traction at all. They backed this shit. The irony is, and this is the same thing you see right now. Okay, so I've complained about cross-dressing horse shit and junk like that. A lot of those kids, deep down, they have a heart, and they mean well. They're just exceptionally stupid. They're susceptible to having the rug pulled out from under them. Having the wool pulled over their eyes, and all the other analogies that have to do with pulling and things, and yeah. So here's Peter Todd.
So have people suspected you of being Satoshi at any point?
Oh yeah, but people have suspected basically everyone of being Satoshi.
Why do they think you're behind it?
One of them pulled up old emails with Adam Back.
It was back in 2001 when Peter Todd, a self-taught coder, first contacted Adam Back. He was only 15 at the time, and like some sort of savant, he already had a deep understanding of digital cash.
So you almost learned how to code before you learned how to read.
Yep.
That's wild.
The logic of coding seemed pretty obvious to me.
Were you just interested in those issues in high school? And
I happened to be a young libertarian, and it was pretty obvious to me that control of money is a very big problem for freedom of speech. We should find a way to have decentralized banking.
Over the years, Peter
So get rid of the corporations, you dumb fuck.
The war on cash is a thing that has to be stopped.
Stupid, stupid fuck.
If you don't use cash to go pay regularly, I don't respect you as a Bitcoiner. Like, that's just a fact. If you're using credit every single day, fuck you.
It casts so much doubt on these kids when they can't reason some of the simplest fucking things out. What do I keep saying? My analogy is, usually, you pull up the weeds at the root, or you cut off the heads of the snakes. But you don't hear anybody in this goddamn documentary or in real life or on the goddamn internet talking about that. Instead, money's bad, blah, 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 fuck the government, anarchy. Superficial dog shit that is going to fuck us up. People have no priorities. They don't have a fucking focus. Hopefully you guys are thinking about what I just said, because that's very fucking important. Look at this douchebag staring into the camera. I don't like him.
Costa Rica have a lot of hydropower, so we're making progress everywhere.
How did something with such anarchistic roots end up being mined by countries?
Because it's a fucking agenda. That's why. And that's how. Don't forget that I'm giving you my opinions in a lot of cases having to do with this jazz. I'm also showing you things out of context, which lends itself to fucking 60-second clips that you get online. It's another thing that's doing that these days, and it's a problem. If you are interested in what I've been rattling off on here and showing you, watch the documentary, formulate your own opinions, reason shit out, look into it. Don't just watch the documentary. Dig, research. Don't digest the latest content. With that being said, here's a little bit more having to do with what China did in terms of this jazz. And another reason I jumped in here to say this is further into the documentary. There's bits and pieces that I haven't just commented on. You haven't got a comment or a commentary on. Hopefully you guys know what I mean. I keep saying that just because, Jesus fucking Christ, these days it's painful.
China now had the excuse it needed to ban all cryptocurrencies, so that they could launch their own.
China's currency is going digital, known as e-Chinese yuan.
It was basically a government-backed shitcoin. Their digital currency was inflationary, that their government had total control of your wallet, and it took Bitcoin's privacy problems and turned them into a feature.
The People's Bank of China is going to be able to peer inside of every single transaction.
So they're building everything to be monitored. So there were protests in Hong Kong. And what people had to do was buy their subway tickets with cash. They couldn't use their card because then you can be traced that you went to the protest. So it's a very dangerous thing.
This is where we're going. This is why none of this should exist.
Or central bank digital currency. With Bitcoin, it still takes...
So do you guys remember what I was complaining about having to do with July 1st, 2023, I believe it was? Having to do with, what is it? What the fuck is it called? FedNow. Having to do with the banks. Look it up if you don't know what I'm talking. If you don't know what I'm talking about, FedNow. FedNow. Supposedly it's voluntary for banks to opt in, but it also runs counter to how banks conduct themselves. In other words, it wouldn't benefit any of the banks. But this is like what I said, having to do with Visa, MasterCard, and all that other shit, which has to do with banks. Our masters control this shit, which means they're going to buy into it because it's the same fucking slush pile. And then July 24th, 2023. This is all when we had the Sound of Freemasons acting as a distraction campaign. And people were talking about, there's a lizard person on a plane. Distraction campaigns. July 24th, 2023, WorldCoin began testing with a digital incentive, and a bunch of dumb fucks bought into it because, oh, you can get some free little coins if you do what they ask you to do. It's just super. This lends itself to what I just showed you guys. People are paving the way for this shit because they're fucking stupid.
With Bitcoin, it still takes some digging to figure out who owns what. And if you're careful, or you're Satoshi and never spend your coins, you can stay hidden. But with CBDCs, your identity is known to the government and your wallet controlled. In other words, Satoshi's invention had given rise to the very thing it aimed to prevent. What would happen if other countries followed suit?
I also question, because this Satoshi holds this huge stock in this jazz, if this junk took off and had legs, they posed this question to a degree earlier in the documentary. It's, again, pulling the rug out from underneath people. If this huge chunk of Bitcoins that Satoshi has allocated to, what I think is the AI by all rights, if this jazz was moved or I don't think if they burn it, I don't think that affects it. But I think if it's shuffled around, I could be wrong. Maybe I misunderstand that aspect of it. It could cause everything to collapse. So if everything was hinging on digital currency, in other words, people are stupid enough to do away with hard currency, which apparently it seems like they're stupid enough to do that, this could cause a financial collapse or a digital collapse as well. If I understand it correctly, and possibly I don't. If I don't, correct me. If you guys know some of these ins and outs, leave them in the comment section. Teach me something. If you don't know shit about it, you don't need to fucking rattle something off and waste everybody's time. Yeah. And what the fuck do I know? Just think about it. Gold and silver can be melted down and used. They serve a practical purpose. I mean, it sounds silly having to even say shit like this. If you can't hold something in your hand, it's not tangible, which means it doesn't mean a fucking thing. And this applies to all things digital. If you've been paying attention to the blanket censorship across the internet, whether you're dealing with it or not, just little stuff. And people, and I complain about this because it's fucking ridiculous and it's the superficial version of it. But kids who are thrown in Facebook jail, in LifeLog jail. They shouldn't be. They should be able to say whatever the fuck they want on the goddamn internet. If it was for the people, by the people. But it's not. Which means you and I are being controlled in a different way through a digital medium. Nothing about that rings true of being free. Nothing. So, the more things that become digital, the worse it's going to get. It's that fucking simple. It is that fucking simple. There are some bigger thoughts that I was alluding to in an angry clip that I left online earlier tonight. And maybe I'll rattle some of that off sometime. Maybe I won't. I don't know. It's shit that people should fucking be talking about. It's something that I shouldn't have to say in order for people to think about it. Because if they were just thinking about things to begin with, they would already be talking about what I'm alluding to. Thanks for hanging out. Bitcoin documentaries. The fact that one of these exists is very telling that the things are bad and they're getting worse. This thing shouldn't be as big as it is. Naturally, this did not bring up what I wanted, though. I mean, some of these are small budget shit too, I think. I think that's what this is, but I might be wrong. Granted, there's a lot of stuff uploaded to fucking YouTube. Hopefully you got the point. There wouldn't be documentaries about this if people were doing the right thing, because it wouldn't fucking have traction. Just like all the agendas I complain about and the stupid people who support that shit. Western powers seeking to establish these CBDCs, which is commonplace now in terms of the jargon in 2024.
Things are heating up.
Can I give you some fear.
Under the cover of the FTX scandal, the United States announced it would explore remaking the US dollar as a CBDC. You know, that thing that was condemned by Western media and US politicians over human rights issues.
The Chinese CBDC is a surveillance tool.
But now the West was preparing to get on board. The Fed even had their own white paper.
As our white paper on this topic notes, a US CBDC could also potentially help maintain the dollar's international standing.
A digital dollar that could replace cash entirely. And they weren't alone.
60% of central banks around the world are currently experimenting with CBDCs.
The CBDCs.
60%.
From even Western governments.
On CBDCs, I have pushed that project.
By 2030, Britcoin, a central bank digital currency, will be up and running.
Why would a country adopt Bitcoin?
You and I are well and truly fucked. The only way this is going to turn around is if mass people, multiple people, the moral majority, pull their heads out of their ass. But if no one's challenging them, that's not going to fucking happen.